Hi everyone. I'm going to make a series of short videos addressing points that come up as I read your work. This first short video will address doing easy, quick online research to be precise and accurate in representing that which you write about. I'm going to use as an example this scene from Anthropocene, the human epoch. Several of you have chosen to write about this scene, which is wonderful. It's a great scene to write about. I'm going to address some ways in which some very basic online research and really fundamental and requisite online research can vastly improve your ethos, the credibility that you'll bring to this project. And this is not just about writing this essay for me in this class. This is the kind of fundamental awareness and skill set that you need to develop if you wish to be taken seriously when you write about anything. And you're not just writing to your friends or, writing in some very limited context. Okay, so this is not just to be seen as something for this essay alone, or for this class alone, but something to really build into your practice as a writer. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing I'll note with regard to research is that a number of you, whether writing about this scene in this film or not, have failed to accurately and precisely identify the filmmakers. There are 3 of them. Sometimes you only mention 1. Sometimes some of you only mention 2. Sometimes some of you spell names wrong. If any of that happens in your final draft, you will not be able to get an A, no matter how good the rest of the essay is. That's fundamental, basic stuff. Check your facts. Do the little bit of research necessary, which in this case might be just looking at the Canopy page and getting the information accurately, or a Wikipedia entry, or the Internet movie database, or any number of other sources that you don't even have to cite, just to check your facts. Who made the film? How do you spell their names? All right, so once we've got that kind of basic research out of the way, let's consider something considerably more challenging and difficult. Let's watch. Okay, we hear 3 things as the camera pans out. The swelling of those strings, right? There's an orchestra. Soundtrack. We can hear the beeping of the trucks and a little bit of gears grinding, maybe. And then, of course, this voiceover, which then segues into an interview with this man here. Now, if you're really describing this scene and this shot, right? There's a lot of information to write about already, right? Really help your readers see it accurately. One thing we can talk about is the sound. Now, if there's music, it's best to be able to describe it. It's intentional. On the part of the filmmakers, it's intended to contribute to the overall effect. And you need to be able to attribute it to a source. Music just doesn't magically spring forth from the air. Somebody writes it, people record it, and we need to give them credit. How do we do that? Well, one way to do it would be to look at the credits at the end of the film, right? We'll do that in a minute. Filmmakers have to credit their sources too. As you know, you've seen the credits roll. The other way that we'll look at would be to do a simple online search with a few basic keywords and see if you can find that information. And perhaps, better yet, also find additional information that might lead to an even stronger and more interesting essay. But first, let's listen to a little bit more of this.
I mestieri erano tutti facendo...
Right, we hear very dramatic operatic vocals, right? And you don't need to know this opera, of course, going into this. It'd be a little bit much to expect that you're an opera buff. But you need to have a curiosity about why this piece of music, what it's doing, why it was chosen. It's very distinctive. It's not generic, right? And it's all synced up in a very intentional way to these huge slabs of marble falling and so forth. Again now, you're writing about the scene. What's the music, right? Well, like I say, one thing you can easily do is go to the credits. And here I've screenshotted the credits. You can find them yourself. They're at the end of the movie, always. And you know, here we see music, right? It doesn't say where in the film this music appeared. The first thing it lists is Don Giovanni Assenateko M'invitasti. Okay, pardon my Italian. Composed by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. All right. Igwe, composed by Midnight Crew. Sacre del Gotardo Self, composed by Knut Jensen. You know, you could keep going, but if you, I bet many of you already know the most likely composer of that piece, right? And you could check it out online. You could go listen to, starting with Don Giovanni. Maybe that's it. Another thing you could do, of course, is a basic keyword search, right? So here, I took that scene, Burtynsky, opera Anthropocene, Carrera. I used Burtynsky because he's actually the best known of the three filmmakers, directors, co-directors. And immediately I find something that looks hopeful, right? Lest this not so subtle message is lost on those less familiar with opera. Okay. So I click. And I read a little bit. I did a search for the word opera. And wow, I really hit something worth working with. I might, if I were writing an essay, I might say, I want to use this. So the author notes that the documentary, the footage of large equipment removing Carrara marble slabs, is accompanied by a high-volume soundtrack from the final scene of Mozart's opera Don Giovanni. Okay, so at the very least now, I could write an essay and name the soundtrack and describe its effects a little, perhaps. Very dramatic, right? I could do a little more research. Is that a tenor? Is that maybe the soaring tenor? I'm not sure. I need to check. I could learn a little bit more perhaps about this piece. I could listen to it, and it might help me write more effectively about it. In fact, you can probably guess that the filmmakers chose it for a very specific purpose. And this writer here helps us understand that. It's a death scene in which an anguished Giovanni is asked by a marble statue to repent for his sins. When Giovanni refuses, he is engulfed in the flames of hell. And here are the lyrics translated into English from Italian. By the way, somebody got the language wrong. Don't just guess. Well, it sounds like Swahili to me or whatever. You can find these things out. That's basic research. Anyway, terrors unknown are freezing me, demons of doom are seizing me. Is hell let loose to torture me? Or does it mock my sight? To which a chorus responds as Giovanni descends into the inferno, and the slab in the film of Carrara marble is moved by the equipment. Torments eternal wait thee, burning in endless night. Right. So anyway, there's this scene of Don Giovanni from the opera going to hell. That's synced up with the film. And the interpretation this writer gives it is pretty straightforward, right? He writes, lest this not so subtle message is lost on those less familiar with opera, a monotone female voice also offers a survey of the hellfire Anthropocene proponents argue has followed the Holocene era. British Columbia, BC, forests are being decimated, oceans are in peril, animals are becoming extinct because of human-driven habitat loss, poaching, pollution, and climate change. All right. You can read this article if you wish. You can find it. The author is actually quite critical of the film. He feels like they're trying to scare us for political purposes or something like this. But all right, that's that. I know I sound cranky. Forgive me. But I want to stress that when you're working on this essay this week, and I know it's a little unfair for me maybe to react to things that you wrote for the end of last week, right? When you're working on this essay this week, get that baseline, fundamental research done. You know how to use the internet. I know you can find all kinds of stuff online. So do it for this essay. All right. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be making a few more of these videos moving forward.